Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Today, we're back with award-winning author, keynote speaker, and executive coach, Annie Meehan. Hey, Annie, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you back. And today, I want to talk all about becoming a keynote speaker with you, Annie. So, how did you transition from author to keynote speaker, or vice versa? And what steps were most critical in that journey?
Well, first, I was a speaker first in churches and rotaries and chambers. And every time I got done speaking, people are like, you got to have a book. Why don't you have a book? You should have a book. And I tend to be a little sarcastic. So what I heard is, I'm going to write a book that makes them write their own book. So I wrote down 150 questions that were like, what's your favorite vacation? What did you want to be when you grew up? Whatever. And I put it into a workbook called Past Detours and Possibilities. And I would give it to people when they'd say, you should write a book to me. And I'd say, you should write a book, answer these questions, and you'll have a book. So that was kind of my sarcastic response. And then from that, people said, oh, I'm using it for a better date night. I'm passing it back and forth with my teenager, and we still don't talk, but he answers questions and I answer questions. Oh, I used it to interview my sister dying in hospice. But that one tool, that book that I charged $10 for, which was just an inspirational journal full of questions and quotes, I charged $10. So if I got invited to speak, but no budget for them, I'd say, well, I sold 5 books. At least I made $50 in the beginning. And I tell people, if you're not being booked to speak, create your own stage and start speaking. And so that's what I really did to grow my keynote speaking, where now I can do 6,000 people in an audience at a big corporation or conference. What I did is I just started speaking. So I spoke small and low fee and no fee, but then I kept writing books because the book became a tool to show that I had more than just a speech to give them, and that was able to earn some money while I was out speaking. But the way that I did it was first faith communities, then Rotaries. Then I spoke on behalf of United Way. So finding a nonprofit and speaking on behalf of them, either voluntarily or for a low fee to get in the doors. I ended up speaking at 300 corporations in downtown Minneapolis, St. Paul area, from 3M to Target to Best Buy. And whether it was a 4-minute presentation or up to an hour, but usually 4 to 20 minutes, I had to tell a quick story, do a quick ask, and move on. But when you do it, the other thing I believe is hire a coach to become a brilliant speaker. There's a lot of speakers out there. In fact, there may be millions. Be brilliant. Don't be good. Don't be great. Be brilliant on the stage. And the way you will know is not by people telling you they liked you or you were good. The way you know you're brilliant is people giving you their phone number and saying, we have a conference in 2 months. We want you to speak. Making you referable, picking up the phone to call other people and saying, hire her. She's amazing. So be referable. But when I started speaking at those companies, they would ask me when I got off, okay, you've had kind of a horrific life and you're super positive and optimistic. I've had one little hangnail and I'm negative Nelly. Help me be like you. So then I started coaching people through that. And then I started speaking more. And then they said, can you do a training? And I was super blessed because an executive at Comcast really loved me and my messaging. He had bought Be the Exception, and he came to me and said, I'd love for you to train my 7 managers. Will you write a workbook? So I took my Keynote, which was my book, and I turned it into a workbook, and I did a 7-hour training with them, and they each managed between 200 and 600 people. And that led to them asking me to train more people and more people. And so at 3M, I was invited to be a coach to one of the executives there that was global. And she really helped me see and refer me to other people because of the work I was doing as a speaker and a coach. So I think like the more you speak, the more you speak, but you got to be excellent when you speak. And some people are more writers and some people are more speakers. All of us can be both. But for me, my weakness is definitely my writing. So get more support with my writing. And I've always had a coach as a speaker too. I do both. I coach and I have a coach for both. But writing is more or speaking is more my natural gift. Writing is definitely more of a challenge for me.
Well, I love how you mentioned that you had to start small and local and, through maybe some free speaking engagements where you still were able to sell some books, you met people who introduced you to people who introduced you to people. And, that just spiderwebbed and you have this wonderful network and all these speaking opportunities and you get paid well now for it and you love it and you have all these clients from it. And I do love that you mentioned having a speaking coach. I think some people think that that's silly. And it's so not. I mean, having a coach for anything is not. Having a mentor for anything is not. And I think some people say, oh, it's just speaking, and yeah, it's very difficult. And to execute a well thought out pitch, speech, presentation on anything is very difficult. And there are professionals that can really help you. What would you say are key elements of a powerful keynote speech that engages audiences?
Yeah. And just like you said, a lot of people will say to me, I love to talk. And I'll say, that's great. That is not what speaking is. That is not what speaking is at all. And people are like, I have a good story. And I'm like, again, not what speaking is. And because I've done it now for 20 years, I know a lot of ins and outs and how to connect and how I always say when I coach people, I say, number one, are you willing to adapt? Even if you get booked for an hour, can you change it to 20 minutes? If you get booked for an hour, can you change it to 3 hours? Trust me, these are real life examples that have happened to me. Number two, are you willing to make it more about them than about you? And number three, do you know how to have a conversation with people, not talk at people? Ego gets people in a lot of trouble in the speaking world, and they don't keep going. It's easy to enter. People say anyone can call themselves a speaker, but to retain a 20-year business of speaking over and over again is much more challenging. So what are my keys? My keys are always working with the client to make sure that I'm meeting their needs, not what I want to talk about, what they need, to make sure they're getting the results that they want. A key is get your ego out of it. A lot of people, the reason they're nervous is, I hope I'm great. I hope they like me. I hope I say the right thing. I. And I'm like, the reason you're nervous is all in your head. You're thinking all about yourself. And in the beginning, when I was speaking, I always used to tease my husband and say, oh, I just want him to like me. I just want to make 3 friends today. And then he'd say, did you get paid? And I was like, I don't know, but I really like them. And I made friends and we'd laugh about it. And one day I looked in the mirror and I was like, who cares if they like you? Which might seem like a really weird thing to say to writers and speakers. But what I learned along the way was them liking me was about my ego. My desire every time I take the stage is that they like themselves better. My desire is they leave the room and they have some way they can apply whatever I said to their organization, to their mindset, to their personal life, so they can have more joy because they look in the mirror at themselves every day. I want them to like themselves better, not me. I'm considered motivation and inspiration. I think I'm always activation. So always tangible. I love to always give a handout. We have different style learners in the audience have a style. Some people like to take notes. Some people like to watch. Some people like to listen. I don't always love PowerPoints, but I've learned always bring them, even if I don't need them for them. You know, a lot of people use PowerPoints for themselves to keep on track. Get past that. Practice over and over, whether it's a 5-minute speech or, I've done a 3-day training with clients. And one of my favorite speeches was 4 minutes and it was about hands and it was booked through an agent. Never assume because it's short, it's not going to be paid well or powerful. Yes, in the beginning, a lot of free speaking. I have learned just for my own mindset and value, I do 4 pro bono a year. So I don't call them free anymore because it diminishes the value of my wisdom and work that I've done. But I do 4 pro bono. But in the beginning, I would do as many free as I could, but I always had comment cards. So afterwards, they could ask for other topics or information that I could speak to them on.
You touched on this a little bit, but how do you balance, percentage wise, maybe storytelling with actionable insights to create an impactful speech, but it's also entertaining and it's got a good story and it's gripping?
Yeah. I always think number one, a really important key is always leave them laughing and wanting more. So the end really matters. And I can touch on, usually when I speak, people are crying, people are laughing, people are learning. So I learned along the way, and I think it's a good formula, but again, everything's different, kind of relative, but for every 10 minutes is how we think of it, of every 10 minutes. So for every 10 minutes, have a point, have a story, have a lesson. Every 10 minutes. So if it's a 60-minute, you could have up to 6. Another thing is in an hour, I have 7 keys. I might say, I'm going to deep dive into 2 of them in an hour. I'll touch on all 7 so you know what they are, but I'm only going to do application on 2 because I want time to not only teach you, but for you to do. So thinking about your timing, I used to in the beginning of speaking, I wanted to tell them everything, do everything. It was too much. You actually leave them overwhelmed and they can take nothing away. Less is more. And so being able to take your hour and say, okay, I'm going to talk about 7 things, but I'm only going to teach 3 lessons and I'm going to give 3 application. And if they bring me back again, or sometimes I'll do a keynote and then I'll do a breakout, or I'll do a 3-hour pre-conference training with the workbook. So I have 10 books and 2 workbooks, 2 online courses. When I can use the workbook, they can get a lot more application, but I cannot do that in an hour presentation. So knowing your time frame and giving them enough. So there's great value, great humor, great engagement and story. So kind of when we're thinking of in a kind of three solid stories in a 1 hour keynote. Though many keynotes have gone to 45 minutes. I find more and more, they used to be an hour, now they're more like 45 minutes. People can't pay attention, they're distracted by their phone. And never start your speech with a thank you. I know it might seem counter, but like, hi, I'm Annie. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you for I start with a story. I did a 5 minute disruption. I'm talking before my foot hits the stage, and people are standing at the end like, oh my gosh, like you woke us all up. There's 20 speakers. Know that. And be funny, be engaging, startle, almost startle, disrupt their thought, because the phone clicks on the second there's silence. I got to check my Facebook quick. Oh, I have a text. Be so engaging and care so much about the audience. That's probably another huge compliment. People go, Annie, you genuinely care about us, don't you? And I'm like, absolutely. Everything I do is because I care about humanity. So care about your audience. Don't be about yourself. Humor, story, point. Don't overfill them. There's always more time for them to read in your book about the rest or to hire you another time.
That's great. Now, I want to go back to you mentioning about your workbook, and just using books as leverage to land paid speaking opportunities. How can authors who maybe, unlike you, started with their book versus public speaking,
Okay.
but want to get into more of those opportunities?
Yeah. I challenge people, know that when you're creating a book, you're investing. First of all, know there is some money investment, whether that's hiring a coach, hiring an editor, getting somebody to format, all those things. But the other thing is I like to say, get 100 books and within the first month, give them away. So if I want to speak with Dennis, go to my dentist office, leave a book, give it, say, thank you. You guys do great work. Go to admins. Admins have more influence than you realize. A lot of people think I got to get to the CEO. Sometimes I got to get to the HR director. Sometimes, but the admin, I can't tell you the number of admin that read my book, loved it, and told someone they had to hire me. Hand out your book, get your book out there, do book signings. I asked every coffee shop, ice cream shop, bookstore. Can I do a book signing here? Boutique, partner with boutiques. Can we do a women in writing night? Can we do a this? Can we do a that? Having events around it. And a lot of book signings is just another way to market, to remind people, oh my gosh, I have a new book. And I'm also a writer. I'm also a speaker. I also coach, whatever their skill is. So getting that book into people's hands, not in your storeroom, not in your closet. And know that you need to invest in buying a number of books so that you can get them out. I have worked with 3 different printers in my career. I now use KDP, Amazon exclusively. Do they take more money? Yes, in some ways. But when I'm traveling and I speak internationally, I want to be able to say, oh, you want 100 books? Let me go to Amazon and ship those to you from wherever I am in the world. So it just makes it a lot easier. But get your books out of your closet, out of your mind, off your desk, and into people's hands. So hand them out, give them out, send them with lovely notes saying, this is my book. I'm so excited to come train on it. I'd like to speak about it. Here's 3 things I think could help your organization. Tell them the value, tell them the knowledge that you have, so that they at least, can we set up, I also ask for a 30-minute Zoom call. So I never really like to talk to people on the phone. I would prefer seeing your face, and sharing my passion for the work I do. And so I would encourage your listeners to do that. Get the book out there and then follow up. I sent you a book. I left a book at your office. I just want to make sure you got it. Do you have any questions? Another thing I did, which was a great small way to enter with having a book, I write my books for book club books, so they don't sell one. You buy 10 for your whole neighborhood to read together or your whole office to read together. So people would bring me in for free will offerings of a book club. So I've done 2 in Southwest Florida, and both of them brought home over $1,000. So they read the book, they invited me in as a local author, and I got to answer questions. And then they passed a bucket, and both over $1,000. And those are recent ones, but I've done that. Offer your book as a book club, as a team building inside of an organization. My first paycheck came from a chiropractor who wanted me to train his front office on goal setting. So that was my first paycheck for $250. So don't overlook anything. Don't assume, oh, they're too small. Do it at a bank, do it at a chiropractor, a dentist's office, a neighborhood book club. You'll be surprised that just getting out there and talking, even answering questions on your book, will grow into speaking engagements.
Well, that's fantastic, Annie. I want to talk a little bit about what the pay typically looks like for these speaking engagements. And I know that it varies so much. But just for an author that's wondering, how much do I charge or how much to expect or budget maybe into some of these speaking engagements, what would be your advice?
Yeah, I think the topic matters a lot, number one. So when we're talking about how to get through a divorce and I've had a hard day in my life or cancer, unfortunately, those tend to be lower fees because it's very personal and it's very much about you. When we're talking about leadership, about goal setting, about achieving, about success as a franchise owner, being part of direct sales and leading a team, there's greater value, right? Because they see it as an ROI to like, oh, this speaking engagement, this book can help me achieve greater success. So that's kind of a broad answer. But what I want to say is anywhere from $50 to $17,000 an hour, depending on who you're speaking to and what their budget is and what value they see on you. One thing, I was in my mastermind this morning. I have 3 other speakers I meet with once a month. And one thing we were talking about is I usually say, when they say, how much do you charge? I say, tell me what your budget is. Or we'll say, please don't let fee get in the way of us getting booked. But unfortunately, so many people speak for free, and it kind of kills me, to be honest with you. So I'll say to people, please don't say you'll speak for free. You're so desperate to speak. Not only does it hurt you, but it also hurts me. Please don't do that. Especially as women, so many women will be like, I just want someone to listen to me. I just want to get, and I'm like, don't be so desperate. Even if you are, check that with your girlfriends and tell them, oh my gosh, I need money. When you get to a client, say, tell me what budget you were working with. Tell me what your honorarium is. Never assume it's free. And if they say we don't really have a budget or we've never paid anybody, say, do you mind if I have a book table? Say, do you mind if I have a video of this? Say, can you have a professional photographer take pictures? Could you write an endorsement on LinkedIn? Don't just give your wisdom and your work away, because as long as you do that, that is what you'll get. I just don't do that. I can't do that anymore. I'd say, thank you so much. I've had so many women's conferences say to me, oh my gosh, we love you so much. We're an empowerment conference for women. We want you to come in and inspire women. You're amazing. And I'll say, what's your budget? Oh, we don't have a budget, but it's a great opportunity. It might lead. And I say, thank you so much. I've been homeless and I've been hungry, and exposure doesn't pay my mortgage. So I need to be paid something. Do you have a sponsor? Do you have, and by asking the right questions, I can't tell you the number of conferences where I've been told they have zero, and I've walked away with over 5,000, sometimes over $10,000 cash because I help them find a sponsor. I help them get one of their sponsors to buy 100 books, and I sit at their booth and sign. There is always money, whether it's, can I pass a basket and do a free will offering? Can you buy 100 books and put them in? Are you going to get a swag bag? Do you know how many water bottles people have? How about if you buy my book instead? When you buy 100 or more, I give you 50% off. Why don't we put a pineapple book, a little teeny book with a great lesson, in everyone's bag? So I think sometimes people are so desperate to speak, especially a new author, that they'll give it all away. Know your worth. Have your anxious, desperate conversation with your girlfriends. And when you're collaborating with a potential client, say, what can you do for me? I want to make this a win-win. Talk in terms without sounding desperate and without sounding greedy. I'll work with your budget. Tell me where it's at, And so again, my fees are kind of all over the place, but a lot of people will say fee integrity to me in the speaker world, but most, if not all, speak for many different fees, depending on how busy or slow they are. But when you're first starting out, just get out there and speak and do book clubs and teach. And sometimes it is pro bono. Sometimes it is free at a library, or you're putting on your own event, but know your worth. So when that conversation comes up, you're ready to say, I'll work with your budget. What do you have in the budget? We've never paid before. Well, what would it look like to pay someone? What do you think? I need to at least cover my expenses.
Well, Annie, thank you so much. That was wonderful insight on becoming a keynote speaker.
You're welcome.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's interview with award-winning author, keynote speaker, and executive coach, Annie Meehan. Be sure to check out our website for more videos. Wishing you all a fulfilling and successful writing journey.